I love CSS because it allows me to customize everything. In fact, what I want to do now is I want to start customizing the font and this text right in here, okay? In fact, I'm going to start with this body tag again, with it selected right over here in the CSS Designer Properties section. Again, make sure that's selected, Style CSS, body, and go down to the text section right in here. And notice how I can change the font family. So this is going to do it for everything on my page. Selecting default font, and I want to go beyond these, okay? So I'm going to select Manage Fonts because this gives me the ability to actually pick additional fonts, and I encourage you to peruse all of these. You can sort by sans serif, slab serif, all that good stuff. But what I want to do is I actually want to go with this one. I like this one. Actor looks pretty good. It looks very legible, and it's just clean. And I actually know it has lots of different weights to it. So that's what I want to select, is I want to select Actor. Okay, clicking done. Okay, it didn't apply it yet. It's going to add it to my web page. But notice as I select default font, there it is. The font happens to be, again, a web font, and you can see how it's changed my content. But let's just take a look kind of under the hood, if you will. This is what it's added. It's using these edge fonts, right? So that's what gets thrown in there. It's a good thing. And then not only that, right over here, Styles, CSS, you can see Actor Normal 400, right? So that's actually what I want in that case, I'd say. Everything looks pretty good. Maybe right over here, I'm just going to actually change a couple more things. Say, for instance, the height, I want it to be 100% for this page. So I'm going to make sure it goes from edge to edge. And what I can do is I can switch to the Styles CSS, and you can see where it's added it. So I can actually do that while viewing this code. I can come over here and even say, for instance, for the margin, change that, or make sure that's sort of zeroed out. And it is, but you can see how it changes margin. I can even set a shorthand, and that actually just means make it 0. Just like that, and you can see the margin is set to 0. Just kind of clears it all out, but in essence, that's what the shorthand means, all right? And now if I select Show Set, you can see just the properties that I have set so far for, again, the body, which is, again, the background and then the font. Let's go beyond that because I want to do some more things. In fact, for this H1, clicking back to this source code right here, H1, what can I create for you? Well, let's change that. Okay, so right over here, I'm going to add a new selector to the Styles CSS. So selecting that. With that selected, that H1 selected, clicking plus, it actually gives me body aside H1. That's pretty good. It's actually pretty specific. So I'm just going to remove those first two. And I'm going to say, hey, for the H1 tag, wherever it's being used, add a property to it, okay? So right in here, under properties, going down to text, we're going to add another font family. In fact, let's mix it up a little more because we actually want to go beyond the Actor font. I actually want to go into a slab font. I love this slab serif. It's just really cool. I actually really like this alpha slab 1 because I really want this header to stand out. So that's what I'm selecting. Again, it just adds it to this list so then I can add it to my page just like that. You can see it change it right there. I'm going to do a couple other changes because I want to get into the font size. Okay, right now it's just a default font size. And you get all these different options when you're changing a font size. And I'm going to encourage you to use M's. M's are dynamic, which means they're going to change based on desktop to mobile, right? So it's always going to be appropriate for the device or desktop that it's on. Okay, so I'm going to select M, and I'll show you what this is really actually pretty powerful. I can change this to 2M. I'm going to go clear up to 4M. You can see how large it is. And I actually think 2 actually looks pretty darn good. Text alignment, let's center it. I can also change the line height as well. And again, typically I want to do mostly 2M or 1M for that. And I can always modify this later. But essentially, that's kind of what I want for this font. I'd say that looks pretty good. Even for the height of this, I can say, hey, you know what? For the height of this line, make it maybe 1M, and you can see that it just kind of spaces it out. So I've added a bunch of things. I can select Show Set. It shows me all of those properties, and I can go into the Style CSS, and you can see it right there, okay? I've established sort of the height of that box, the line height, if it starts to wrap. Font size is 2. You can see everything that it's doing. In fact, that's what I'm going to do once more. And let's take a look. Actually, 2 more times. I'm going to do this for the H2. You get the idea. Click. for a selector to add the H2, and it's that same process, but it's nice that once that font is added, I can just select Alpha Slab 1 for that H2. Right down here for the size is, of course, something I want to change. I want to make sure they're in the correct read order. Let's try 1.5. That looks pretty good. And let's center that text as well. And lastly, let's do that for the footer. So check this out. So it doesn't have to be necessarily an H1, H2, or a paragraph tag. It could actually be this footer right down here, this footer tag. I can add, again, another selector called footer. And in this case, I'm going to leave it with the default font, but I'm actually going to change the font size. So going to the font area. Let's go down to the font size. Number of things I can do. I can do M's. I can go down to, say, small, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. You can see it's made it small just like that. And then let's center it. Okay, again, I can show just the set properties, a lot less here. Going into the styles, you can see everything that is added and everything's looking pretty darn good. So I've not only customized the text, but I've also added additional fonts that I can use as well. Lastly, just don't forget to select Save All. That will save everything. Everything's looking fantastic. And now I can start to customize this some more with CSS.